take you back now to Veldrift in the Western Cape, where Premier Alan Winde has delivered the State of the Province address. eNCA's Monique Mortlock joins me now and has the Premier with her in conversation. So sweeping changes, at least at a policy level, Monique, and I suppose the citizens will be hoping it's not just renaming departments and calling this one the Department of Infrastructure, the other Department of Mobility, and talking about Department of Police Oversight and Community Safety, but that actually there is content that makes a difference in their lives.
Yes, exactly, Tulas, and that's why I thought it important to get more clarity on this from Premier Alan Winde. He mentioned that Infrastructure Department will see a combined, will see a combining of the Human Settlements Department and components of the Transport and Public Works Department. And just to give us more clarity, Premier, what exactly will this department's main function be? You mentioned the combining of these departments. You mentioned that there will also be a mobility department under this in order to make the mobility of Western Cape citizens a bit more easier when it comes to our public transport systems. But what exactly will this infrastructure department be doing?
So first of all, if you look at South Africa, we've got massive failing infrastructure, energy infrastructure, port infrastructure, rail infrastructure. In the province, I'm really proud of our provincial infrastructure, but I want to take our provincial focus to the next level. So that, you know, people always say to me, but this is in your province. Why is the rail not working in your province? So first of all, our own mandate, but how do we make it bigger? And so that's why I really want to focus on infrastructure. If you get that infrastructure right, you can create more and more investment opportunities. So that's why I'm focusing on infrastructure. And obviously in our department, we've got a department at the moment, it's public works and transport. So it actually takes some of transport, roads, because they're part of infrastructure, but the other part of transport goes and becomes the mobility department. Of course, what I've announced today is the start of a process, because now we have to engage with unions, with our departments. You know, I don't want anybody to start, getting worried that tomorrow it's going to be, you're not going to have a job. But it's about bringing those departments together. It's about a new focus, because also I think we keep on doing the same things over and over again and hope to get another outcome. Well, quite frankly, you can't. We've got to up our game. We've got to take it to the next level. So that's infrastructure with a real focus, and it's part of the overall jobs focus. If I think everything comes under jobs, so infrastructure for investment and jobs, mobility for investment and jobs, and then bringing this new kind of learning from COVID-19 that we all focus on making sure that jobs are the name of the game. Investment, creating an attractive environment so entrepreneurs can create jobs in our province.
How much will this cost?
So, of course, we go into budget processes now, and, of course, we're in an environment where, in actual fact, there's less money generally and not more money, so we have to become smarter. But that's also, because I say that we've got less funding and more demand, you've got to rearrange government so that you can actually meet those demands with less funding. So we've got to be nimble, we've got to make sure we're putting the right money in the right places. So that will start to happen now, not necessarily even in this first budget. Some will start in the first budget, but it will happen over the next year.
So it's likely we'll only start really seeing work being done by this department later on this year only, or next year? What's the time frame that you've given for these consultative processes to take place and for the department to actually start doing work?
So it will be in this financial year, but obviously the Human Settlements Department continues with their job. The infrastructure development out of Public Works continues with their job. You know, maybe in the beginning they just work together as we start to create this single entity.
And finally, you mentioned the Violence Prevention Unit. Tell us, what is your hope with this unit? You mentioned that it is the first in South Africa. It will be headed up by the Health Department.
So, you know, our violence prevention program in the safety plan gives responsibility of violence prevention to every minister and every department. But if you have everyone responsible for something, then no one's responsible for something. So you need to have a centre and then everyone else responsible. So that has been the learning and innovation, what we've learned from other countries, and also seeing it amongst ourselves. If we are to go to the next level, you have to have a unit that wakes up every morning and they're their mission is violence prevention. So that is the unit. It sits in the health department. So far, I think in other countries, that's where it's worked best. And I also think the responsiveness of our health department and what we've seen during COVID-19, it makes sense for me. And the health department is actually the department that feels the brunt of violence. So the health department deals with the gunshot wounds. The health department deals with the abuse of alcohol and the crashes, deals with those murder victims, deals with the GBV victims. So they themselves are where they deal with it at the coalface. So it makes sense that they become the centre, and then they make sure that everyone else is playing their part.
And just quickly, Premier, because you mentioned it in your address, and this is something that we heard from opposition MPLs also bringing it up, wanting to know where we are with the Albert Fritz matter. Can you give us any insight into how far that investigation is?
So obviously the investigator was put in place. I asked, please, as quickly as possible. 14 days is what I suggested. We're past 14 days now. But the indication from our legal team is that I probably should get a report very soon, and hopefully it's this week. Of course, she needs to be able to do her work. I can't interfere in that. It has to be properly independent. We have a proper process, but I sincerely hope I get a report, within this week. And then as soon as I get it, I will communicate, and then of course I'll communicate what the report says and the outcomes from it.
And as far as you know, no complainants have opened a criminal case with SAPS yet? I
haven't heard of one yet. So that is also an issue for me. I need those cases to also be open because an independent investigator and lawyer can investigate certain things, but can't investigate the criminal side, and that must be done through the police. So again, I urge, not only in this case, I urge, and I know it's difficult, and I mean that's one thing that I've learned in this process, how difficult it is for someone to come forward. It is traumatic, it is scary, and then to go and lay a criminal case. I think that's really, really difficult, and that's why I praise those NGOs and those NPOs and those activists, because they help empower women to come forward, enable them that they can actually. And I'm saying, please, let's try and get those cases in for the police investigation.
Thank you very much, Premier, for your time. That was Premier Alan Winde speaking to us after his State of the Province address. Two big issues coming out there, or two main key points. That setting up of the infrastructure department, which will see the human settlements department and parts of the transport and public works department combining to ensure that any infrastructure development that happens across the province is streamlined. And the reason for these two departments being the ones that will be combined is because since 2019 the Western Cape government has spent about 19 billion rand on infrastructure development. That's your building of houses, upgrading of roads, healthcare facilities upgrading, and the bulk of that 19 billion rand came from the human settlements and the transport and public works department. And Western Cape government is really hoping that with the setting up of this infrastructure department, they will see a drop in unemployment rate, as they are hoping to create more jobs and in turn tackle unemployment and hunger in the province.
All right, Monique, thank you for those insights there. Very interesting State of the Province address there by the Premier of the Western Cape. That is Alan Winde, ringing in the changes, including that unit that he's calling a violence prevention unit that interestingly sits in the Department of Health. And he says it's really part of the all-of-society approach to tackling issues of violence in our society.